Hey guys, this is Charles Yeager with Shutterstock. In this tutorial, I want to show you how to create an Inception style effect using a drone. Now I could keep talking about it, but let's just first look at some examples. So for me, what makes this effect stand out is the matching parallax we can see across both landscapes during the movement. And the trick is getting this to match up. And I'll walk you guys through how to do that, but I do want to mention that I've seen various versions of this effect before, but frequently they're done just by flipping one piece of footage. And flipping the footage is kind of a quick way to get a similar effect, but because the top and bottom footage are identical, you're not going to get that unique parallax. And it comes across more like a tiled pattern has been applied to your footage, so it doesn't sell the depth nearly as well, and it's easy for our eyes to pick up on patterns, so it quickly breaks the effect. Now if you don't own a drone, but you still want to learn how to create this effect in post, you can download the project file, which includes 2 drone shots. It'll be available on the blog post for this tutorial. Check for that link in the description. Alright, let's get started with how to film the drone shots. Now you can use any drone you have. It'll probably be a little bit easier if you have some of the modern, smaller style drones. I actually use the Mavic Air for most of the examples that were shown. So starting out, I recommend flying your drone about 50 to 100 feet above the trees, above the highest point relative to your location. Having your drone fly above the highest point kind of relative to your location is very important, and we're going to look at that a bit more later on. Next, angle your drone camera so that the distant horizon line is center in the frame. And if you have the ability to film in 4K, I definitely recommend that too, but it isn't required. Now the key is we need to do a movement with our drone that we can match with both of our shots. Now you can do this any way you want, but what I recommend doing starting out is just flying the drone horizontally. So hit record and fly the drone only sideways by pushing on the right control stick all the way to the right or the left. By pushing the control stick all the way over, we're maxing out the drone's speed, which will look better, but also we know the speed for both shots is going to match up closely. I recommend flying the drone sideways for at least 20 seconds after you hit record. Now if your drone has a sport mode, that's going to be tempting, but I actually recommend leaving that off, as it tends to rotate the drone too much and the video may not be as smooth. Now obviously you're going to need 2 different drone shots, and I do recommend filming at 2 different locations just so the landscape symmetry isn't so similar. Another cool look is filming at the same location but in different seasons. I do want to mention a few extra location tips. Make sure you don't have anything cross the top of the frame except the sky. This is very important. Also, avoid filming directly at the sun if it's setting or rising. Directly filming at the sun will also create problematic lens flares. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, it's very important to fly the drone above the highest point relative to your location. This is so you can see off into the distance, which will create the parallax we want. You can see on this shot where I'm filming a ridge and I'm too low to see past it into the distance. This type of shot won't provide the parallax we need, and it's going to end up looking like a flat picture moving across the screen. Alright, now that we've got our drone shots filmed, let's go ahead and jump into After Effects. Inside of After Effects, I've already imported in my 2 drone clips. If you haven't done that, you can just drag and drop them here in the project panel. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to double click on each of our clips, and then I'll kind of open up the footage preview here. And what we need to do is we need to trim the in and the out point for each of our clips, so that we're only getting the portion where the drone is kind of at full speed and it's flying across our scene. So you can see here, if I go ahead and preview, kind of scrub through this footage, at the very beginning, we're not moving at full speed, so the speed has to kind of ramp up. Now we're kind of moving at the proper speed horizontally, and then at the end, again, it could slow down or stop, depending on whenever you started and stopped your clip. So what I want to do here is I'll come to about 6 seconds or so, and I'm just going to set an in point there, and then we'll come over here to the out point and set an out point. Let's go ahead and repeat this process with our second clip, so just double click on it. And I can go ahead and scrub through here. You can see at the very beginning I'm not moving. So about right here at 8 seconds, go ahead and set that in point. And I'll just move through this We can see this slows down here at the end, so I'll come back here in about 20 seconds or so, set that out point. This just ensures we're only working with that middle section where both of the drone shot speed are very similar. So now let's go ahead and create a new composition down here. So I'll click on the composition icon. I'm just gonna call this scene. And this is a 1920 by 1080 size composition. Then the frame rate is just the same frame rate as my drone footage. And for the duration here, I'm just gonna do it for 10 seconds. Let's go ahead and click OK. So now let's go ahead and drag in that first clip. And because we set that in and out point, we're only gonna get that middle section again. And if I scroll back here, we can see this is in 4K, so it's quite a bit bigger than our composition. You could select the side of your footage and hold shift if you wanna scale it down. Or what I'm actually gonna do is just select my footage, come up here to layer, and then transform, and then fit to comp. And that'll fit that perfectly for our composition. Let's go ahead and repeat that with our second clip. So I'm just gonna drag and drop it in. And with it selected, come up here to layer, and then transform, and fit to comp. Now I'm gonna have this shot be the shot that's upside down in my scene. So with it selected, I'm just gonna select the rotate tool up here and just click, and I can rotate that footage. If I hold shift, it'll snap here to be perfectly 180 degrees upside down. Now what we need to do is remove kind of this upper portion of the sky. And we're gonna do that with the rectangle tool. So I'm gonna select the rectangle tool with my footage selected again. And what I wanna do is I wanna create a rectangle mask, but I want it to kind of stretch out on both sides of the footage quite a bit, and quite a bit at the bottom down here. And that's because we're gonna feather this mask and we don't want any edges to show. So I'm just gonna click quite a bit out here off to the side and drag across and create a mask like that. So I'll just zoom out here and you can kind of see how I created that mask, how wide that is. So what we need to do here is come down here to the mask that we created. I'm gonna set this to be subtract. And if we toggle down the mask options here, we're gonna see feather. And we can increase that and you'll see how it's kind of creating that feather on that mask edge. I can even turn the mask visibility off there so we can see it a little easier. And I'm gonna set this to be anywhere from 150 to 200. So I might set that up to be 200 right now. So I'm gonna come back up here and select the selection tool. And I'm gonna click on that footage at the top and I'm gonna hold shift and just kind of move it up a little bit. And I'll select this bottom footage here and I'm gonna pull it down. So we kind of get those two layering together right here. Now you can see because of that feathering with that mask, the sky is blending quite well. Again, I'll select the top footage here and I can even pull it down really close. You can see the mask kind of fades here on those back mountains a little bit. And this is obviously kind of way too far down. But I do want to show you that if you filmed your shot where you can see further off in the distance, quite frequently the stuff in the distance is going to be more faded, it'll be desaturated and have less contrast. So if that mask does overlay on those background elements a little bit, it won't be nearly as noticeable because again, they're kind of desaturated anyway. Now let's go ahead and do a quick RAM preview of this to see which direction each of the shots is going in and what we need to change after that. Now just by doing a short preview on this, I can see the two land masses are moving actually in the opposite directions here, so we can see they're not really tracking together. And that'll happen if you shot both of your shots kind of moving in the same direction. Again, because we flipped this one over, it's now kind of moving in the opposite direction. Well, what's nice is we have a lot of ways we can fix this, so it gives us a lot of latitude in post here. The first method we could use is we could actually just reverse the footage on top, and that'll change it to where it's moving in the opposite direction. And to do that, with that footage selected, I'm just gonna right click, come up here to time, and then you're gonna see time reverse layer. So I can just select that. And you'll see this kind of like blue bar appear on the bottom of your footage, and that kind of indicates that it has been reversed. So if we go ahead and start to preview this a little bit, we will see they are both moving together now, and that's what we want. However, I will say that reversing the footage like this tends to render a little bit longer. It takes a little more processing power. So I typically don't do that. So I'm actually gonna go ahead and change that back. And what I like to do is use a preset just to kind of flip the footage around called flop. So if you come here to the effects and presets, I'm just gonna type in flop. And I'll select that and just apply that to that top version of the footage. And that's just gonna flip it around so that now it's actually gonna move in the correct direction. You can see that just apply the transform effect. And this tends to be a little less render intensive. And it's just my personal preference above time reversing the layer every time. Now it's worth noting again with these shots, they're both 4K and we have a 1080p composition. So this actually allows us to do a little bit of camera movement kind of in post, which can really help sell this effect as well. And you can even see if I zoom out here, we have quite a bit of footage at the top and the bottom that we're not even utilizing at all. So what I wanna do here is I'm gonna zoom in, I'm gonna select the top footage, and I'm just gonna come down here and I'm going to parent it. So I'll click the pick whip here, and I'm gonna parent it to drone shot 1. And what this is gonna allow me to do is kind of move and scale this bottom shot, and it'll automatically scale and reposition the top shot as well, so everything will kind of stay in sync. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select the bottom shot here. I'm gonna hit P for position. And I'm just going to hold shift and drag up a little bit. So it kind of reframes it upward. We'll go ahead and create a keyframe there. And I might even scale in on this as well. So I'm gonna hold shift and press S, and that'll open up scale. Let's go ahead and create a keyframe for that. And I'm just gonna increase the scale here a little bit. And we may reposition this up a little bit higher as well, something like this. So now you can see we can barely see that top landmass. So it's gonna kind of act like a reveal at the end. So let's just move all the way down to the end of our composition. Let's go ahead and set this scale back down to 50. And I'm just gonna click and drag this to reposition it back down. So we'll kind of reveal more of the top half of the landmass here. So you can see the way this kind of moves. It starts out looking at the bottom terrain, looks pretty normal, and then it kind of pulls back to reveal the Inception style effect that we can see. And that's really how easy it is to create this effect. Again, you just wanna make sure you're working with two different drone shots that have the exact same movement, or at least a very close movement. Finally, to tie everything together, we can just right click here and create a new adjustment layer. Then we can apply some color correction with something like Lumetri Color or a color grading LUT. There are two other things I want to mention that can help you when you're creating this effect. And the first one is, if your footage is just a little bit shaky, how you can stabilize it. So if you need to actually stabilize one of your clips, it's really easy to do. For this example, I'm gonna pretend like this top clip is a little bit shaky. So I'm just gonna select that shot, come up here to layer, and come down here to pre-compose. And I'll just call this stabilize. And this is really important. You wanna make sure you leave all attributes in this scene and go ahead and click OK. And what that does, it creates a new composition down here. So you see nothing's really changed, but if we double click in this composition, we now have access to that full 4K file. And this is perfect for us because there's no effects or anything applied to it. So we can go ahead and stabilize it right here, and that'll just exist inside that other composition. So to stabilize your footage from here, I'm just gonna select my footage, and I already have the tracker window open. I'm just gonna select Warp Stabilizer. And that's gonna automatically start analyzing your clip. I'm gonna speed this part up just so we can kind of see the settings we need to use when this finishes. Okay, now the footage has finished stabilizing. What you need to do is, under smoothness for the method, we need to change this to be position, scale, rotation. And then for the framing, we need to change this to be stabilize only. And you can see if I zoom in here, it's gonna crop in a little bit on our shots. We have some edges showing, but that's okay. What we need to do now is go back to our main scene. And what you may need to do is just scale up a little bit on that second shot. So I'm just gonna select it, grab one of the edges and hold shift and just scale it up just a little bit. And that'll just ensure we don't have any of those black edges showing up when this plays back. The second thing you may want to try is adding in some alpha channel elements like birds, or 3D tracking in some fog. This can really help plus your shot, and if you'd like a more in-depth tutorial on this, check out another tutorial I did for Shutterstock with ways you can enhance your drone footage. That tutorial also has a free project file and links to some free assets as well. Alright guys, hopefully you enjoyed learning how to create this look, and if you did, give us a like. And as always, check out the other videos we have on the Shutterstock channel. Again, I'm Charles Yeager, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.